Welcome to the Marc Denney Podcast, an audio-only experience hosted by me, Marc Denney. This is episode 5. You can look forward to new episodes every Friday on Spotify and Apple Podcasts under the Movie Reference podcast feed. I appreciate those of you who have checked out this podcast for the last 5 weeks or so. I thought about doing an Ant-Man recap this week, but then I thought, nah, they don't want that. Then I thought about talking about all the trailers that came out with the Super Bowl. Then I thought, nah, they don't want that. What they want is to hear my review for Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. Am I right or am I wrong? It is an MCU weekend because Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania is coming out. So I thought it would be appropriate to finally share my review of Wakanda Forever. I watched both the film and behind the scenes that they released on Disney Plus, and so with that being said, I would probably say mild spoilers, but I'm not planning on going into spoilerific detail about the film. What I want to talk about first and foremost, I want to start with Chadwick Boseman a little bit, then talk about Black Panther in the MCU so far. Then I'll give you my review, my thoughts on Wakanda Forever, which will probably contain just mild spoilers. Like I said, I'm not planning on saying too much about the film. And then, if time permits, maybe a little bit about the MCU. Just a little bit. I don't know. Who knows? But yeah, there it is. Hope you're ready. Enjoy the show. Oh, man. Okay. So Black Panther, pretty significant superhero. It was such a huge, monumental impact, not just on the MCU, but as a culture, as representation, and it was one of those characters that just, I don't know, you kind of felt the impact when they announced Chadwick Boseman as King T'Challa, or Prince T'Challa at the time, also known as Black Panther. And they actually announced this when it was like this big event that they had where they were announcing, I think they were announcing Phase 3 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and Captain America: Civil War. So you saw Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans on stage, and then that's when they brought out Chadwick Boseman. It's a very memorable moment, kind of hair chilling inducing moment. One of those moments that makes your hair stand, because it's just, wow, this is huge. And that's not to take away anything from Wesley Snipes, who played Blade for 3 films back in, I think late 90s, early aughts. Is that what they call them now? But this was a bigger deal because the MCU was such a significant footprint as far as superheroes were concerned that, wow, they're going to do Black Panther? Okay. And then it moved on from there when they announced that Ryan Coogler was going to direct Black Panther. And Ryan Coogler at the time his name was popping because not only because of Creed, right? I think Creed came out like 2 years before, and it was just like, whoa, this man's a genius. How did he think of this story to basically make a sequel series to the Rocky films and do it so well? But he also did a movie called Fruitvale Station, which, if you haven't seen that movie, it's a tough watch. It's one of those movies that, man, you will be crying by the time you finish that film. And it's based on true events, and of course it's about. If you don't know the story, it's definitely it's not a good. It's a police and a young black man, and I'm pretty sure you probably know the story from there. But it's it's tough. Anyways, Ryan Coogler, amazing at that time, and still amazing to this day. I'm sorry, but he got announced to direct Black Panther, and it was like, oh, Okay. So it was just big moment, big moment. And Chadwick, man, Chadwick Boseman, the late Chadwick Boseman, rest in peace. I only like he popped up on my radar because I used to watch this thing called AMC Movie Talk, and I think it became Collider Movie Talk. But throughout the years, his name would pop up in various projects that he was doing, but there weren't projects that I was like checking out, right? Like I still haven't seen Get Up, right, where he plays James Brown, but I did see 42 where he played Jackie Robinson. He was playing these important historical figures who made an impact, you know, in their respected fields, and you could tell that this man cared about representation. He cared about who he was as a man and wanted that to be seen in the world. And so you kind of felt that with every performance that he gave. And it wasn't anything different when he was cast as Prince T'Challa at the time, who will eventually become King T'Challa. Um, but that's what put him on the map for me, though, obviously, because I was at that point in time, I was so deep in the trenches with the MCU that anything that they were putting out, I was like, oh, I still have that feeling of what's next. I'm curious, but my enthusiasm has dippened a little bit in recent years. But at that time, it was really high. Like, oh, what's next? Give me something else. But yeah, Chadwick Boseman, he was great as T'Challa, and such a, I don't know, such a presence. Specifically, he showed up in Captain America: Civil War. He showed up. He had his solo film Black Panther. He showed up in Avengers: Infinity War, Avengers: Endgame, and he even provided the voice of. Is he? He's. I mean, he's still T'Challa, but in the What If series, he's Star-Lord. He's the child that's abducted from Earth, and he becomes Star-Lord, a more successful Star-Lord. But that was like the last project that he got to work on before he tragically passed, and it was that was a shock. I remember what it was. Yeah, it was. I don't know, man. It was kind of similar to when Paul Walker passed. It was like one of those moments of like I in disbelief. Nah, this is a hoax, or and then oh gosh, this is real. Like, not to put anybody down. I'm just saying that it definitely I felt the impact, and I can't remember if they were already working on the sequel or if they were about to announce. I'm not sure. I think at that point they already announced that they were making a sequel and that Ryan Coogler was coming back. But obviously, you know, things change, right? Like, whoa, the sequel at that point in time it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? It seemed like they were like a close knit family as a production. It seemed like Chadwick was a great, like a great glue for the cast and crew. He seemed to respect everybody, and this is just from the outside looking in. This is from watching behind the scenes clips. This is from the knowledge that I've kind of learned, not, like things that I've learned about Chadwick in recent years. For people like Ryan Coogler to talk about him, and the rest of his cast to talk about him, and so it just seemed like he was that guy. He was just a great person on set and serious about his work. But yeah, so yeah, he got to play Black Panther, multiple times, and of course, the big deal of Wakanda Forever was okay. Now that the main tie of it all is gone, what are you going to like? What's going to happen next? Is that going to be a part of the story? Is it? Are they just going to recast? to keep the mantle going. What is the plan? And it was they let it. I mean, rightfully so. They let everyone grieve in their own time before they even made the choice to announce what they were gonna do with Wakanda Forever. Ultimately, they decided to use the real world, and infuse that with the story that they wanted to tell with Wakanda Forever. So, with that being said, let's get into Wakanda Forever. Like I said, it's just gonna be mild spoilers. I don't plan on spoiling too much. Most of the stuff that I might spoil is like the beginning stuff, but it's also things that you've seen in the trailer. So that's how I'm using my spoiler thing, my warning. So, Wakanda Forever. They, it's hard to say anything negative about this film, okay? And I mean that because, in a respectful way, man, they pulled off a feat. They did something so remarkable with the circumstances that they had, that you kind of sit back and go, damn, and some fans were disappointed, of course, with who they ultimately choose as Black Panther, and I think everyone knows, so I will bring that up later. And I think that people were hoping that they were just going to recast, but I don't know. Like, you look at the story as a whole, you're like, wow, Now it doesn't make sense in terms of storytelling. It's unfortunate that it's the sequel, right? Because you're just like, whoa, you got the first Black Panther, and you're like, oh, I want more of this. What's gonna happen next? And now you're getting one where they had to change the story. They had the individual who is earning the mantle had to earn it. They had to have a reason to earn the mantle. And man, they made some really cool storytelling decisions that I really appreciated in this movie. So obviously, Angela Bassett is the talk of the town. She's got herself a Best Supporting nom, and it's a big deal because it's the first Marvel Studio film to be recognized with a Best Supporting Oscar nomination, and that's Angela Bassett. She plays Queen Ramada, and she's extraordinary. Obviously, it's Angela Bassett. She's just a force, and she does so great in this film. Both playing the queen, obviously, head of the household, but also in the quieter moments. The sweeter moments, the moments where you realize, oh my gosh, Shuri is the only child left, or the only person left of her family, and those moments between the two of them are much more deeper than in the first film. In the first film, it's light, it's fun. Shuri is this kind of smart ass, and Queen is just proud of her son. She loves both her kids, but this time, that's it. She only has Shuri. Her husband passed away in Captain America: Civil War. He gets blown up, and then what they reveal, they just say a disease takes T'Challa away, and that's actually how they start the movie. Like, the panic of Shuri trying to replicate this flower. This particular flower is what they use for Black Panther. They drink it. They go and talk to the ancestors, and then all of a sudden they have the power of the Black Panther. This is after combat. That's part of their heritage and traditions. But if you haven't seen the first Black Panther, you won't be aware of this. But the first Black Panther, Michael B. Jordan's character, Killmonger, actually burns all the flowers, so they don't have anything. So it was a really, as far as story-wise, that was a really neat way to tie it of, well, we can't save T'Challa because we don't have the flower anymore. And so she's trying to remake it, replicate it with science and technology, and it obviously, unfortunately, doesn't work. And so it's those moments though that she shares between mother and daughter that I think really make the movie. But then it's also Shuri's journey. I mean, by default, her journey has to become more meaningful than what it was set up in the first film. And so she, played by Letitia Wright, is just figuring out. She's fighting through grief. She's, she has a lot to learn, and her interactions with characters such as her mom and Telecon and that's not his name, Namor. Well, Telecon's his tribe, but Namor though, like it just these moments of just like wow. I don't know. I really liked how they set up her interactions with characters. So I just have such a mad respect for how they wanted to tell this story. They follow they go into they have a funeral. You've seen it in the trailer, and it's so beautiful. It's the mix of the real world with the fantasy of, well, the T'Challa's gone, Chadwick Boseman's gone. We're gonna celebrate slash pay our respects, and it was such a moving moment. And Ryan Coogler, man, in that scene alone, he knows. I mean, between the set designers and the costumes and like how they make the colors pop, and the way that it's captured Wakanda, like I'm so happy to be back in this world that I'm just utterly impressed with how they designed everything. And then of course they have the Marvel Studios logo that just it's so quiet, and they honor Chadwick Boseman with his previous appearances and I think some behind the scenes. I've only seen this movie once, so I might get some things wrong, but it was still like wow. And then they actually make it go 1 year later, like they're still an impact, and this is after all the events that happened in Endgame, right? If you guys haven't seen Endgame or Infinity War, Thanos won in Infinity War, and 5 years go by between Infinity War and Endgame, and so we're 5 years ahead than where we were. Wait, I don't know. How does that work? No, I don't. I think we're whatever. I don't. I math at this early in the morning. I can't even think. But they gave it an additional year of the Wakanda struggling to protect its most viable resource, vibranium, even though King T'Challa really wanted to open up the country to help others and to help the world. It became, now it's, you are becoming too greedy. You're trying to take what's ours, and we want to protect it. We want to make sure that it stays in Wakanda because it's better in our hands. We know what to do with it, and clearly they do. They know how to. I mean, look how vibrant the Wakanda is, the country, and the fact that, well, we don't have anybody that's going to use it for bad, right? And so, other than when Killmonger comes into town, but he's not. You know what I mean? Like, it's different. Come on. So, and then after that, you spend like 2 hours with Shuri, like on this adventure, because I think everyone knows, you saw it in the trailer, you saw it in the poster, Shuri eventually becomes Black Panther. But they didn't rush it. They didn't even make it an inkling of an idea throughout the movie of, oh, Shuri should take up the mantle because it's T'Challa's sister. No, they didn't even bother to do that. They just let the story unfold. And they let it be known that, hey, we need a protector of Wakanda. We need a Black Panther, multiple times throughout the film. But no one said, Shuri, you should become Black Panther. It's not even a thought or an idea throughout the movie until that moment is realized. And there's a certain reason why that kind of pushes Shuri to that. And it's super important. Yeah. Like I said, I'm trying not to spoil the movie. watching some of the behind the scenes, it was crazy. This movie was filmed during the pandemic, and like, you know, I how they found a new story to tell. I'm sure if you guys are fans of the MCU, you probably heard that Ryan Coogler had a different idea for the sequel, and that it was going to be like a father-son story, and basically be about like almost like summer camp. But of course, something goes wrong, and they have to go and fight. But that's the brilliance of someone like Ryan Coogler, who's just so talented. And I forget. I don't know if he wrote this with someone or he wrote this by himself, but I'm just wow. I'm so grateful for the care and the hard work the cast and crew. Because man, watching that behind the scenes was like wow. They really cared about this film. Despite that, the critics that I listened to were kind of mixed on the movie, and I think the movie is like an 84% of Rotten Tomatoes. So majority of the critics, basically that means majority of the critics really enjoyed the film, and then some, the math, 16% of them weren't fans of it. But you can't say that they didn't come into this movie trying their absolute best, because that's what they did. And the thing is, the first one set such a high bar, and you definitely feel Chadwick Boseman's. You feel his presence, but you also notice his disappearance in the film. And this film really tries to reach it, but if I'm being honest, even though I've been praising it, it doesn't really reach that bar. That bar is really high, but it's still good. And out of the Phase 4 films and shows that have come out, I did my list not too long ago on the movie reference, and this, I would say it's definitely in my top 10, probably, I don't know if it cracks my top 5, but it might be on the bottom end of my top 10, like, not, how do you say that? Like top end of top 10, like 6 or 7? I don't know. I have to really think about it, probably watch it again. But yeah, I just think, I don't know. Maybe it was just one of those things, a one-time bias thing. I don't know. But the music great. Chadwick, Ludwig Göransson's music is great. The various artists, the representation music-wise was crazy cool. You got a variety of different types of music that you probably never knew. I mean, maybe you knew existed, but there's so much different flavors. It's kind of hard to describe. Like once you throw on the album, it's like whoa. Yeah, you get Rihanna, but then you start getting other artists, and you're like, I never heard of this person before, and it's just like, this is a great song. It's like the curated music was just so incredible. Now I praised it. I do have some negatives. I personally think we could have waited to introduce Riri Williams. As cool she is, I really like. Oh man, what's her name? Oh, what's the actress's name? I'm sorry. The funny thing is that this actress, I found out through the behind the scenes, actually auditioned for Suri, back when they were making Black Panther, and they just kept her in mind. Her name is Dominique Throw. I don't know. Sorry, Dominique. She actually auditioned for Suri, and I was like, what? But she impressed them so much that they were like, oh, well, she's got to play Riri in this one. That's so cool. That is so cool. But I think that they introduced the character too soon, or gave it too much time. I think it would have been better as a tease or a reference, and then, because she has her own series coming out right on Disney Plus. It could have been easy, just a reference or tease at the end of the movie that, I don't know, something that we're gonna do what T'Challa said, or I don't know, who knows, and like show her at the end of the movie as a tease, and then she's gonna have her own movie or her own series, and she's gonna be in the movie. So I don't know. I don't really that particular storyline, yeah, it does end up giving us like a really badass car chase sequence and a fight sequence on a bridge. But I don't know. I think they could have done without it. And then there were some CGI elements that I wasn't a fan of, and particularly when it came to the Ironheart costume. Not so much the Mark One, like, obviously she built that out of the garage, and it is what it is. But that number two, when she builds in Wakanda, which is shown in the trailers, it looks too much like a transformer, and I just didn't like how it looked. What you know what I mean? Like, there was something realistic about the Iron Man suit that was like, it felt like it was used, worked on, even though it had an upgrade color scheme. This was like, it seemed cartoony. It kind of stuck out from the rest of the background of the sequence, even though there was probably tons of CGI in the background. Hers stuck out like a sore thumb. Same could be said for the Midnight Angels. Like, I get it. It's comic book lore. I liked the suit without the helmet, but when the helmet came on, it just kept reminding me of the Fifth Element. I don't know if you've seen that blue lady that does the opera. That's what it kept reminding me of, and I was like, I don't really like this look. Maybe it works in the comics. Maybe we could have done without the helmets or something, because I like the blue suit itself, but I wasn't a fan of the CGI on that. But yeah, so there's my thoughts. Just a couple negatives, but overall, man, I really enjoyed the movie, and I don't know, I really appreciate what they attempted to do, and respect what they did, and I mean, that's all I can really say, really. Wakanda Forever ended phase 4 of the MCU. They try to break these out in phases. This was the end of it. And then they had Guardians of the Galaxy. I guess that was like an epilogue, holiday special, sorry. And then phase 5 begins this weekend with Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. And if you're someone like me I just check Rotten Tomatoes, right? I just check to see what people are leaning towards, what they're not leaning towards. And then I actually have like 10 critics that I go and I actually listen to their full reviews, okay? So I actually get a good palette of expectation. Right now, Ant-Man is sitting at 49% out of 226 reviews as of this recording. And the consensus, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania mostly lacks the spark of fun that elevated earlier adventures, but Jonathan Majors' Kane is a thrilling villain poised to alter the course of the MCU. Jonathan Majors is probably by far the most positive thing I've heard about Ant-Man. I'm a fan of the series. I like the first two Ant-Man movies. I love all the appearances of Paul Rudd as the character Scott Lang and Ant-Man. And I was really looking forward to this movie. It was on my must-sees list if you heard that episode. A little disappointed at the response. It's nearly divided 50-50, as far as like positive reviews versus negative reviews. And then all my critics that I listened to ultimately were just disappointed with the film. So it's kind of like, oh man, like I really wanted to see this movie. And I still will. I still want to make my own opinion. For all I know, I might leave the movie going, oh man, that was awesome. If you do go see it, apparently there's 2 post-credit scenes. Anyways, just saying, that's the start of phase 5. Phase 4 was a little shaky. Kind of ran out of time to talk about it. But I talked about it on the movie reference. I gave my list out and everything. But I think the MCU is on a plateau. I think it's a plateau right now. I think that their trajectory when they started phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 was up, up, up. Even though there was a couple dips, they kept rising. And they reached the top. They got WandaVision. They went up a little bit more. And then after that, it was like a plateau. Just a straight line of, here's some good stuff. that doesn't always stick the landing, a couple dips here and there, but going up a little bit, but ultimately staying on one line. And unfortunately, it doesn't feel like they're elevating enough. There's a little too much humor going on. It doesn't feel organic. It feels forced. And like they have these stories that they haven't found the right way to represent some of these stories, as far as we have so much story to tell in this series. We maybe might think instead of 6 episodes, we should probably do 8 or make the episodes longer, right? Like there's certain instances of that, of we didn't earn this ending. Maybe it was intriguing in the beginning, but now we didn't earn this ending, or we didn't have enough story for a series. We could have just done a special. You know what I mean? Like there are certain things. I think there's some growing pains in Phase 4. Even though I'm happy about all the characters that were introduced, and I'm happy for the future. I'm excited, but I'm not as excited or enthusiastic as I was during the first 3 phases. Now that Phase 4 is complete, and now we're jumping into Phase 5, and now I'm just like, okay, well, I guess we'll see. And I don't want to be there because I'm a huge movie fan, but I'm also a huge comic fan, and I love the MCU. I think it's so much fun, and I think it's great when actors want to come play, and I don't know. But anyways, that I wasn't planning on going way into it, but hope you enjoyed my review. Hopefully, you guys will check out Wakanda Forever. Like I said, I only gave mild spoilers. I didn't go full on. One thing I didn't mention is I really enjoy how they represent cultures, right? Like Namor and the Mayan culture, and I love how they represent Wakanda. Like I love all that. So, anyways, that's it. That's all I got to say. So. Thank you for tuning in to the Marc Denney Podcast. This is episode 5. Please make sure to follow at The Movie Reference on Instagram for any polls that might be posted this upcoming weekend. As always, guys, have a wonderful weekend. See you all next week. And just remember, Wakanda Forever.